Hi, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to Verifone Connect and the NRF. My name is Abazar Vakaria. I'm the Senior Vice President of Digital Services and run the Verifone Connect product. I want to introduce my co-host here, Nathan.
Hi, my name is Nathan Gill. I'm responsible for services in Europe.
So what we want to do today is talk about Verifone Connect and really help people understand what that is. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how we're interacting with some of our clients using this product that we're talking about. So let me start with what is Verifone Connect. Verifone Connect is Verifone's digital stack that allows us to have an end-to-end product that lets an acquiring customer or a merchant think about taking secured payment, think about managing their devices, managing merchants that they may have inside of their estate, and being able to take applications and value-added experiences, and then lastly, processing that payment itself. So we think about all of those things with a very simple mantra. How do we make merchants happy? Merchants in this business, especially small merchants and even large merchants, are trying to make sure that they're doing two things. They're optimizing their business, number one, and number two, they're creating new values. So let me give you an example. If we just take a small merchant in this space, I met with a small restaurant owner down in San Francisco, and he had a really interesting problem. He had a very good lunch business where his restaurant seating capacity would go to 100%, but his kitchen was only at about 50% capacity. When he thinks about Verifone Connect, what is really interesting for him is being able to take the utilization of that kitchen during the lunch hour up to 100%. How does he do that? There's a set of applications that we have and solutions that we provide that would allow a restaurant like that to extend into the catering space. They could either take delivery services that are burgeoning right now in that space, go look for them directly on the device, or call us to see how he could get that going. Now, he can take the same business that he has and he can start marketing to catering businesses. Those people put orders in the afternoon, and he can then start to deliver them using a Postmates service, a Uber Eats service, or any other service of that nature. And all of a sudden, his restaurant capacity is at 100% both in the dining room as well as in the kitchen. Now that's just one very simple example of how Verifone Connect can help a merchant to start to grow their business. With that, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we are announcing some of this here, some of the elements that are made up of this service, and then we'll talk a little bit about how Nathan works with customers to bring these things to market. So when I think about the Verifone Connect stack, obviously there's a whole set of things that we need to do to make this available. First, we have a secured payment application. This payment application is written using our developer kit. It has a set of special features in it that allow us to do interesting things like switch out applications that then can interface with that payment application. So for the first time, a merchant can use a very modern way of testing his business. He can try one application, see if that works well, for example in the loyalty space, and then he can try another one and see what that looks like. All of this without having to fall inside of PCI scope. These are the kinds of powers we bring. So that's the payment application. Then there is managing your estate. That includes, if you're a small business, being able to just do one store. But for example here, you'd have thousands of terminals that you want to be able to manage. Not only do you want to manage the device, you want to manage the settings that are there, you want to be able to manage the merchants that you're deploying this to, and even more, you want to deploy what kind of services, applications, and gateway services you want to be able to deploy to these different merchants. You can do all of this through a feature within Verifone Connect called Estate Management. And then lastly, we have a set of value-added solutions we're bringing, whether it's thinking about a restaurant in a box, pay at the table, a loyalty kit, all of these things that an acquirer or a large client of ours can curate and then make available to their merchants. And then lastly, it's about payment processing. Not only do we provide all of these new services, but we also have a set of Verifone gateways that allow you to take these payments and make sure that you're securely managing them and then looking at the data to make sure you're optimizing your business. So those are the 4 pieces that make up Verifone Connect. To summarize, there's the payment application, there's estate management, there's the set of bundles and solutions that you can provide, and lastly, the payment gateways that we have. Thank you very much. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Nathan so he can talk a little bit about how he takes some of Verifone Connect and the 4 features I talked about and how he's bringing that to market inside of the region. Nathan?
Thanks, Abizar. In Europe, merchants are facing a period of unprecedented change, and I think we're seeing that change in 2 different areas. One is from a consumer perspective. The consumer that walks through the door of a merchant today is more digitally tuned than ever before, and their expectations around what makes a great commerce experience have accelerated based on all the great functionality they now get in mobile applications and online. And so their ability to deal with long lines or digging for plastic loyalty cards or dealing with store personnel that don't know much about a product or don't have the right size, or in terms of having different options of delivering that product, their expectations have been elevated. And what we're finding is that a lot of the customers that we're talking with, we're no longer just talking about secure payment. Using Connect, we're now talking about how Verifone devices can attach new services that can help them solve some of those hurdles that they're dealing with these new digitally based consumers that are coming in. The second thing that we're seeing in Europe is an opening of the banking and payment system. And Connect comes at the perfect time because we're seeing new forms of payment methods, we're seeing new ways of allowing customers to manage bank accounts, and in the past, trying to add new payment forms and attach new services was a long, difficult task. With Verifone Connect, we can work with our partners and develop these applications very quickly and easily. And I've got an example of one of those applications here. So for a lot of merchants that have higher average transaction value, whether it's furniture shops or bicycle shops or even home electronic shops, these merchants want to be able to give customers the ability to finance their purchase. And typically the way this works for a lot of merchants is if I want to finance it at checkout, I have to give you a bunch of personal information. The cashier has to enter that into their point of sale system, and then they have to wait to figure out if there's an approval or not. So it's a very time consuming and in some cases an embarrassing procedure for the consumer. With MasterCard, using Verifone Connect, we've looked to solve that. We're providing a financing alternative to customers that's fast and easy and confidential and takes all of that friction out of the process. And it's called MasterCard Installments. Here's how it works. This would be a device that would be sitting on a merchant's countertop. We're going to simulate a higher value purchase, so 500 pounds. We'll insert our card. And what's happening right now is we're doing an eligibility check with this customer to find out if they're able to receive a MasterCard installments offer. In this case, they are. They were eligible. And it says very simply to the customer, would you like to set up an installments plan? I click OK. I'm then presented with 4 different options. I can pay in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months. In this case, I'm going to pick the 9 months. I'll pay £61 and 11 pence. It confirms what I've selected. It tells me exactly what my monthly payment is, along with how much additional interest I'll pay. I'm comfortable with that, so I click Continue. Just like that, my installment plan has been set up, my transaction has been approved, and I've created a much nicer financing experience for customers at point of sale without that tedious manual process. So that's one example of how we're enabling merchants to give consumers more choice so that they have more affordability, and we're making it a really easy, non-invasive, frictionless experience. We're seeing similar solutions on loyalty, in the loyalty front, where we have application partners that are helping merchants give them more insight into who their customers are and the frequency of their visit, and helping them provide real-time offers so they can get them coming back. We're providing new forms of payment payment so that we can have customers who, for instance, may want to pay with Alipay, paying directly at point of sale using Verifone Connect. So it's allowing us in Europe to solve real merchant issues, helping them to grow their customer base, helping them to remove some of these more friction-oriented experiences, and ultimately, I think, giving them an experience that's better than online.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Nathan. So what you guys just saw was a perfect example of a merchant actually creating a new value curve. Now that they were able to offer this seamlessly and effectively, they're able to provide a service that allows them to get a little bit of incremental revenue and even get the client to spend a little bit more money, and at the same time making it a lot more efficient for them to operate their business. So instead of this taking 10 or 15 minutes and making it awkward, they did it very simply. There are lots of other examples of us running the Verifone Connect features here at the booth, whether it's consumer applications here that were microloans, whether it is employee management on our Carbon 8s and 10s, or looking at some of our Carbon mobile devices and our E280 products so that you can see how Android starts to scale in this space. So please come at the end of this and take a look at some of the great demos we have, and we'd love to be able to answer any questions. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.